This episode is very near and dear to my heart. In fact, I feel a bit vulnerable and even nervous in engaging with this individual. I want to tell you how I met this man's work because it changed the trajectory of my life. Dr. Bruce Lipton is a cell biologist, a real one, tenured, the good old electron microscope, the whole priesthood of academia, who walked away from the church of genetic determinism when the cells in his own dishes started telling him a very different story. That the gene doesn't run the show, that the environment does. He said it out loud before the science had a name for it, and then he watched the science catch up. I found his research in the first year of my own diagnosis in the end of 1991 and the beginning of 1992, down on my knees, trying to understand not what I had, but why I was sick. Everything around me was speaking the language of broken genes and bad luck, and none of it fit what I was living. His work landed in my hands and finally gave me a frame that made sense of my own body. Many, many years later, in my first years of practice, the book, The Biology of Belief, came out, and it handed me the language I'd been reaching for, the words to explain to my own patients what I was experiencing in my body and to offer them a roadmap out of the story they were doomed. His newest book, Beyond Darwin, takes an axe at the oldest story we tell about ourselves, that life is a battlefield and we're here to win it. What he offers instead is older than Darwin, and I think truer, that we evolved as gardeners, not conquerors, that cooperation, not competition, is what actually built us. He's also, right now, tending a train of his own, a recent cancer diagnosis that had him living every word of this book in his own body. I don't take that lightly, and neither does he. It is one of the great honors of this show to sit with the person who gave me my language back. So let's begin. I'm Dr. Nasha, and this is Tend the Terrain, where we stop drowning in information long enough to recognize we're starving for something much deeper. Health doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in a terrain. The biology, the rhythms, the relationships, the meaning you're still making. All of it shapes whether life expresses as vitality or quietly begins to unravel. And each week, I sit down with scientists, physicians, farmers, artists, patients, and systems thinkers, people who talk about bodies, but also about land, about healing, but also about grief and belonging, and what it means to become human again. This isn't a show for quick answers. It's a space for better questions. Pull up a chair. It's sometimes harder, this journey, as someone who my husband was my boyfriend at the time of my diagnosis 35 years ago, Bruce, where I think it was harder on him in some ways
Yeah.
because you and I kind of got into the place of like, we're going to get through this, but I don't know if everyone around us quite bought it.
Yeah. Well, I guess the idea, it was funny because when my ENT, I went there because of hearing and headache and, pain. So he was looking at that and then he said, well, let me look in your mouth. And then he looked at
Wow.
me with this real serious look and he said, you have cancer.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
just right there in that moment before
yeah.
any.
And I go, oh. And then he's waiting.
Wow.
Why?
Wow.
When's the emotional stuff going to hit me? I'm just like, oh, okay.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know, and it was kind of funny because none of his, whenever he's told somebody they've had cancer, they're always just like, ah, and I'm going, oh,
Huh. All right. It's information. I'll take it.
oh.
Fascinating. Well, because of the work you have done, you already had some tools in your toolbox on how to meet that information.
I did every kind of thing. I did nutritional update,
Yeah.
naturopath. I did long distance energy. I did a
Amazing.
device called Monocore, a
Interesting.
Russian AI Rife machine. So
No way. The original
yeah,
or the update, the modernized version, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Wow.
well, because yeah, it doesn't just send frequency in; it reads the frequency and then adjusts the input. It takes the
Woo.
output and then reads what it wants to put in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I try
You
everything right because like
you had to, right?
otherwise my career is at a very dead end.
You're like, well, dang. Well, you make me think of one of my heroes in this field besides you, and you're going to hear about this more in a moment. But David Survey Schreiber. I don't know if you ever remember that
No.
doctor. He actually was really famous for his work in uh, learning that omega 3s were just as beneficial, if not more so, than for treating depression than antidepressants. He was a
Oh,
French psychiatrist who
yeah,
really got his fame to bringing on fish oil for depression and
yeah.
a lot of research. Well, what you learned about him later is he also had been diagnosed with a terminal glioblastoma multiforme, like the
Oh,
big dude, right?
yeah.
He was, and it was found like incidentally when they were in one of their MRI, like in med school, right? And they're like, oh, you go scan and just get the sense of it. And they accidentally found this tumor in his brain. And so the man lived for, first of all, his book, Anti-Cancer, was sort of the OG, the original to sort of thinking about what you talk about, that there's a lot more to support the field, if you will, than just chemo, radiation, surgery.
Oh,
And he
gee.
went after that. And he really gave a voice to the integrative medical and integrative oncology space.
Yeah.
And he ended up 17 years later dying from glioblastoma. But his work, his second book that came out after he died was called Not the Last Goodbye. And he wrote this book about the fact that he didn't want people to know he was going through a recurrence of this cancer that he had successfully pushed back because he was so afraid that they would think that his entire work was bogus because it didn't work.
I understand that
I do
consciousness.
you know I had the same thing. Like I was so private about my diagnosis from 1991 to 2012. That's how
Woo!
private it was because I was afraid if I said I did it, I'm here, it would like vex me somehow, like I'd somehow jinx myself. And so reading his book, I sobbed so intensely just relating, but also the fact that this poor man thought that someone who survived a good 16 years beyond the expiration date of anybody else with that same diagnosis
Yeah.
would be perceived as a failure with his work. Jeez. So it's humbling. So I can appreciate that you have like, oh boy, I've got my life's work to still hold and promote and
Oh,
apply,
yeah,
which
because that
you've
was the
done.
immediate thing I thought, well, I can't talk about biology of belief.
Well, your book was so beautiful. I'm so honored that I've had a chance to read it. I'm already gushing. I pray everybody I know has already pre-ordered it. And
Oh,
this
the new
pod,
one. The new one.
yes. So
Oh,
both, because of
I'm
course,
excited by it. Biology of belief. Why tongue cancer? Because I had this book in my head for 20 years and I
this one,
kept lecturing and lecturing and lecturing and then the mind said, "Shut up and write your book." So tongue cancer, shut me right up.
wow.
And
So you
then
had to do,
my scan before was malignant. I started writing the book and then took another scan. It was then benign. And then I finished the book, and the last scan said there's no more cancer.
that.
Tell me biology of belief here.
Living it, living legend. And, just jumping right in, I mean, Bruce, before we go any further,
Yeah.
because of this, I really need to say something to you. And I know you're so humble. Well, hopefully will allow me to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway, which is,
Oh,
you know,
you're going
a
to
few
ask me and then do it anyway. Oh,
because it's my biology of belief that you'll be okay with it. But really, a few years ago, you and I both had this opportunity to present at this unbelievable conference in the Maldives. I mean,
I'll never forget that place.
gosh, I mean, come on. We are so lucky to even be able to just go to the Maldives, much less be presenters there among that. But
No, it wasn't just presenters. It was being gifted uh, an opportunity that people paid thousands of dollars a night, and we got it. And I always remember the place with the bread and the
Oh,
croissant,
all the room, like the rooms of the food buffets and the chocolate room. I
the
mean,
chocolate room and the ice cream room.
yep. And the amazing thing about that man, why we were all there, is because of his own process with cancer, who is still working on his biology of belief, I would like to say. But he was able to even convert a lot of those things into healthier food options
Yeah.
because of what he learned. Like you, I love you talk about your experience in Costa Rica with saying, you thought you were doing well until you realized maybe not as well as you could. I think we all kind of come up against that wall. But
Yeah. Yeah.
at that conference, one of the things in the middle of it, you did the most Bruce Lipton thing imaginable, which you're famous for. You literally stepped aside with me one on one, and you walked me through some of your reprogramming techniques. And then
Oh,
you stood there and let me pour out my gratitude without deflecting a single word of it, as you are truly the most
that was
gracious
before you went on the
presenter.
plane, right?
Yes, yes,
And then you said
exactly.
when you were on the plane, it was no more resistance.
No more. My fear
I
of flying
love
was
that. I love that. When that happens, I love that.
you get the instant gratification, the instant feedback. But you are truly the most gracious presenter I've ever shared a stage with, and the most present just person I've ever had the just absolute joy to meet. And so today I get to return to you the courtesy to really show your the who you are in a very intimate one-on-one discussion for the world to watch. But it's so interesting. Your work found me in the very first year of my own diagnosis back in 1991, the end of 91 and the beginning of 92.
My
You
word.
weren't known yet, my dear. You
No,
were
I
just a
wasn't
good
even
old
there. Was I
researcher.
alive?
You
Oh,
you were just a little pup at that time. But it literally your work started to speak to things. So it truly shaped how I've practiced and how I've lived ever since. So the research was speaking to my scientific mind that was helping it Rubik's Cube into a new way
yeah.
of being. But it would be years later.
While you're
Yeah,
bringing up
please.
research and sciencey part, I presume you read part one of the book with the hypothesis, the theory.
Exactly. It was your early work. Well, a good decade or more before your actual book, Biology of Belief, hit the market.
Well, it was fundamental. That's why I held it for a long time. Oh, I'm just Bruce. Charles Darwin. Bruce. So Bruce didn't write.
Oh, man. It was just crazy. It was like you were a voice in the darkness for me in a time when I was given no options. I was sent home to die, and your words were a life raft for me. And so it's literally shaped how I've practiced and how I've lived ever since. And my gratitude to you all these years and all these rooms later, I'm just curious what it is like for you to hear story after story like mine, from the cancer
Well,
experience all
this
the way
is
to
the
the flight experience.
very interesting part because story after story, people come up and say, I had cancer and I read your book and blah, blah, blah. And I would say, you are now a teacher because you have now had personal experience and you can relate it as personal experience. And I said that to everybody else, but I never had personal experience until
Wow.
this last one. It's like, okay, I got personal experience. I'm
Yeah.
done.
I got my credentials now. Now I'm legit. But it is incredible that your work, even before you walked the path that you've been most recently on, is so fundamental to changing the way is changing the future of healthcare. And so I think it's super interesting that you spent your career learning that genes do not hold the pen. I think it's really interesting that you started the story, that you had this story inside of you that you kept telling with your voice, but you got forced to tell it with a pen. So I think that's pretty interesting. And in your newest, kind of quietest book, this quietest, most radical line in the book that really still reverberates through me of your new book, Beyond Darwinism, is that epigenetics eliminates the victimology of genetic determinism.
Yeah, because everyone has been programmed to be a victim. What? I didn't pick the genes. I can't change them. They turn on and off without me. It's like, I'm a victim of my heredity, and then they give up, and then they pay for. somebody else to give them the power that they have. And it turns out the pharmaceutical company has taken the role of, we'll sell it to you in a bottle. And they're killing people. 300,000 people in the U.S. die from prescription drugs every year, with less than 100,000 dying from illegal drugs. And we have a war on illegal drugs, and I love it, I hate it. Same thing is the response to medicine about it is like, well, that's the cost of doing medicine. I go,
Couldn't we do better? When you know better, you do better. You know, and this is so true. Like I have sat across literally thousands of people who were handed a diagnosis like it was a sentence written directly into their DNA, as if the verdict
yes,
was already like, planned. And you spent 50 plus years watching cloned cells behave one way in a hostile dish and another way in a nurturing one. Same genes, different fate. So as you watch this petri dish, before it even had a name, before you had the fame, take me back to that moment that it stopped being data and started really being personal for you, when you realized this was not just about cells, it was about the people believing they were doomed by their own blood.
yeah. Well, the interesting part, of course, was the observation of the cells in the tissue culture, which said, look, look, they're in growth or they're in protection, but they cannot do both at the same time. So that was the scientific aspect to it, and that was that conscious level aspect. And my colleagues, they denied my research as being an artifact, but they left me with this. They said, well, can you explain how it works?
Mm.
I said, I can show you it works, but
Wow.
I can't explain it. That led me to understanding how the environment signal enters into the cell and controls the genes, which then led me to the cell membrane. And I was an electron microscopist for years, and the cell membrane was actually only discovered about 1947, because before that, its size is so thin, you cannot see it in a microscope. So they estimated or guesstimated that, well, maybe it's a gel like Jello with fruit in it, and that's all the organs and stuff, whatever. Okay. And I kept looking at the membrane, and the membrane, in conventional belief, was the equivalent of like plastic wrap. Holds the cytoplasm together. That's the function. Well, then it also has to have some holes in it because it has to let some things in, let some things out. So, biggest discussion, yeah, the membrane with holes. And I started to understand the membrane, but it was a hint. I was keeping up with literature, and there would be an article called protein called IMP, and that stands for integral membrane protein. And then there was another article. Then there was, and all of a sudden I started looking around and go, IMPs? And then I went back to my model of the membrane, put the IMPs in where there was no proteins, and then I was sitting there, and one of the IMPs is a receptor, okay, which is a signal receiver. And the complementary IMP is called the one I looked at, a channel, which sends information from the environment into the cell. And so I sat there, and it was like, I'm writing a definition of membrane because I'm focusing on somehow the signal, blah, blah, blah. And now I have those IMPs. It's like, So I'm writing the definition of the membrane. And for those like you have seen it, it's a crystalline structure of what are called phospholipids. It's crystal. But the phospholipids it's like a bread and butter sandwich. The phosphates on the outside you can absorb water with, but the lipid on the inside was water resistant. So anything from the outside of the membrane couldn't go through the membrane because the lipid was an insulator. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Great way.
now they had the proteins in there. That changes the definition. So I wrote this definition. I was just like, I'm a the biologist, electron microscopy, some biochemistry, and I'm writing definition different than I've ever done. And I first acknowledged the membrane is a crystal, and then I said it doesn't conduct everything, but it does conduct some things. So I sat there and said, well, it's not a non-conductor, it's not a full conductor. I said, it's a semiconductor. So I write crystal semiconductor with, and I listed the two proteins, receptors and channels. But there's a synonym for a receptor called gate. So now I write it, a crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. And I sat there for a minute like, I just read that. Where? And I had bought my first Macintosh, 1985, the boxy guy, and I had a book from Radio Shack called Understanding Your Microprocessor. So I said, I think I opened up the book, and right in the introduction, it says, a crystal semiconductor with gates and channels is a computer chip.
What?
And I said,
Wow.
wow, what a coincidence, I said.
Wow.
But then I said, let me compare side by side a silicon chip and a membrane chip, part by part, function by function. The whole thing was, oh my God.
Wow.
It's not like a chip. It is a chip.
Wow. Like a mirror image of one another.
And I just sat there and said, oh my God. Oh, I got it. I said, what? The environmental signals hit the receptor, which is the equivalent of a keyboard. Okay? Wow. Then the receptor activates the channel, which sends a signal that's connected to that receptor. A signal goes in, and that signal controls the behavior and the genetics. And I went, oh, the cell is a programmable chip, and the nucleus is a hard drive with programs. And I just said, oh my God, an understanding of it just blew so much. I couldn't see all of the meaning because it was like too much. All of it meant so much about the nature of the universe. It meant so much about how the nature of our control. It was growth and protection. It was consciousness. And then the big one was, so I'm looking at this, I say, oh my God, the tissue culture that I was growing the cells in have a medium, culture medium. Culture medium is the laboratory version of blood. So that's what we make. And what I did in my research is change some of the chemistry, and using genetically identical cells in 3 dishes showed that the growth medium chemistry, the environment, 3 different ones, A, B, and C, and cell and tissue dish A, environment A, the cells became muscle. In the next dish with environment B, the cells became bone. And then in the third dish with environment C, the cells became fat cells. And I'm looking at this going, they all have the same genes. What made muscle, bone, and fat? I said, the environment. And that was like so radical because I'm teaching in the medical school genetic determinism, genes turning on and off and control your life. And I'm going 100% false.
And you knew you'd be swimming up a stream against that little concept.
Oh and I did because my colleagues said, well, obviously there's some artifact in your culture. And if you can't tell us how it works, then there's no, we don't care. And I said, but I can show it to you every day. It works. Wow. They ignored it. That's when I did okay, how's it work? I said, well, the signal comes from the environment, has to go into the cell, it must cross the cell membrane. And so that led me to the study we just said, to the definition, to the chip, to the idea that genes were programs and that the environment was controlling it. Now, interestingly enough, it took 23 years later before science acknowledged what I saw, okay? Not that I stopped, because I was so convinced by the replication of it, repeat it, is real. So I saw the culture medium, chemistry, was creating the genetic activity, okay? And
Amazing.
then I said, but wait a minute. A human
Yeah.
is a skin-covered petri dish with 50 trillion cells under the skin. But it has the original culture medium, the original blood. And then it was like, okay, wait a minute. It doesn't make a difference if the cell is in the plastic dish or if it's in the skin dish. Why? Its fate is controlled by the culture medium or blood, the chemistry. Well, that stopped me and said, well, what controls the chemistry of the blood? I go, the brain. The brain puts the chemicals in there. But then the biggest and the ultimate question, so what chemistry should the brain be putting into the blood? And then it hit me. Whatever you're thinking about, the brain translates it into complementary chemistry. So if you're thinking love, the brain releases dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin to bond with your lover, growth hormone, which gives you the vitality of why people, when they fall in love, are so healthy and they glow. Chemistry of what? Culture medium doing what? Adjusting the genetics of the body's cells to live in this harmony. And then I said, but if I'm in fear, if I'm in stress, I said, the brain doesn't release love chemistry, it releases stress chemistry that, shuts off the immune system, shuts down growth, shuts down intelligence. Like going, oh my God, consciousness is changing the genetic activity because it's being converted into chemistry, which goes into the blood, which goes to the cells, and then the receptor picks up the signal, the channel sends into the cell and does whatever the chemistry is saying. And then the last part of it, and I'm saying this, it's taking me as much time to explain it as I saw the whole
30,
thing.
40
I saw
years
the
of
whole thing, but now to explain it takes a little bit of time. And then the next thing was, wait a minute, the mind. And I said, that is the problem. Why? I said, the mind? I go, there are two minds. They're interdependent. They work with each other. I go, there's a conscious mind, the latest evolution of the brain, and that's connected to, which I'll hold that because that's the last piece. The conscious mind is a creative mind. It has wishes and desires. If I say, hey, tell me what you want, it will come from the creative wishes and desires. But the bigger part of the brain, the subconscious, it has all programs. It's habit. So there's creativity, conscious, habit, subconscious, okay? But habit is based on programs. That's what habits are, programs, okay? So it's the program mind. This one is a creative mind. I then understood something that then every time one of these things hit, it was like, oh my God. And that is this. The conscious mind has two functions. It can look out at the world and navigate you to where? Wishes and desires. That's its destination. Love, happiness, joy, health. That's where it wants to go. But the second function of the conscious mind is thinking. And I go, thinking, the mind is not looking out. Thinking, the mind is looking in. So the moment you are thinking, you are not paying attention to what's going on. So, for example, if you're driving the car, and then you say, well, when I get to the store, I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. I say, At that moment, you are not driving the car. Why? Your conscious mind is thinking, looking in. I say, yeah, but the car seems to be doing okay. I go, because, and this is the point, the subconscious with the programs is autopilot.
Wow.
It takes over. Driving the car, walking, talking, your job, things that you have already know how to do as a
Mm.
program, it shoots in, okay? Now comes a problem with that, because I want to close it with the last piece, okay?
Yeah.
And I say, what's the problem? I say, when you are thinking and the subconscious program is playing, you cannot observe your own behavior.
Mm. Yeah.
So you're thinking, well, I'm a wonderful, happy, loving person, and then you don't realize maybe the program doesn't support that.
Wow. Oof.
Okay?
Oof.
So in my case, and we're programmed before age 7,
Yeah.
a child is in a state of hypnosis called theta, a brainwave theta.
Yeah.
And a child is in a state of hypnosis by what? Observing parents, family, and community. Just observing them, they can download behavior. With an infant can't read a book, go to school, but it downloads behavior. Okay, from what? Observing parents and community, and that's how you know the rules of living. How to be a member of a family. How to
Yeah.
be a member of a community. You can't do whatever you want. You have to follow the law, and the law is what you download. Okay,
Amazing.
so give an example where the whole thing goes wrong. Is my father and mother had a very dysfunctional relationship, but in my programming, which is partly in genetics, but it's a behavioral program to observe my father, and that would be my teacher, my programmer. So I'm watching my father, I'm downloading his behavior, hypnosis.
Yeah.
And then when I started to get older, up to over 40 years, I could not get a relationship going. I could start a relationship, but it would go to hell, okay? And I'm not the only guy, because 50% of marriages end
Right.
the same way, okay?
Right. Right.
But I never even got that far. And then it dawned on me, oh my God, I downloaded my father's behavior.
Mm.
And when I am not seeing it, and that was the point, I would be sabotaging the relationship, and it would fall apart, okay? And so now a prominent moment comes in here. I say, the movie The Matrix is not science fiction. The movie The Matrix is a documentary. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Cool.
its premise is everybody's been programmed. I go, oh, that's a scientific reality. Every human is programmed for the first 7 years. But the part that was like, aha, was the red pill.
Yes.
And when you take the red pill, you get out of the program.
Beautiful.
Well, I would like to suggest that the viewers that we're talking to now, all of them have taken that red pill at least one time. And I say, and when you took that pill, you got out of the program and your life was dramatically changed within 24 hours. You had a new life. Well, why? Why? Falling in love keeps you in the present moment. You stop thinking.
Yeah.
Why? Well, no time to disappear into your head when what you've been looking for is in front of your face. So we stop thinking when we first fall in love. And I said, well, that's the red pill. Why? Because the program that plays only plays when you're thinking 95% of the day. But the moment you stop thinking, the subconscious mind takes over again. Well, that's the wishes and desires, the creativity. I go, yeah, your life is blah, 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 blah. You fall in love. 24 hours later, you're no longer playing the program. You are now playing wishes and desires. I said, and what did you do with that behavior? You had a honeymoon. I go, and what's that? The equivalent of heaven on earth. That's what it means. Heaven on earth, okay? So I'm putting all these pieces together, the mind, the conscious, the subconscious, and the last piece, and this is the one that my life went, BAM! I said, what was it? I said, no two people are biologically the same. I go, why? Because I can't put my organs into your body because your immune system will say not self and destroy it. And you can't put your organs into somebody else's body, their immune system will say not self and destroy it. Having been an immunology teacher for 10 years, the thing that hit me right away is, look, the immune system sees physical things, viruses, bacteria, parasites. I say, if I put a foreign organ into my body and my immune system says not self, the clue is there's something physical that the immune system can say what is self and what is not self. And the answer turns out there's a set of protein receptors. Receptors are antennas, receivers, okay? And they're on the outer surface of this other antennas that stick up like this, okay? And I say, they have a special name. They were named incorrectly, but now the name became more accurate. They're called self-receptors. Now, self-receptors to them just meant these proteins are your receptors. And here's the fact. There's a set of these receptors. No two people in the entire world, 8 billion people, no two people have the same set of antennas. Okay? And this is why we're immunologically identities different than anybody else, because my cells, have to add this, with the exception of red blood cells that don't have those receptors. And that's why red blood cells can be transfused from one person to another as long as you get the blood type right, but there's no identity to them. But an organ, a tissue, has identity. So the idea was self-receptors. Yes, that's why we can't exchange the parts. I go, yeah. And that they're focusing on the physical nature of the receptor as identity. And I'm going, no. It's a receptor. It's a receiver. It's downloading a signal. And I realized, oh my God, each of us has a set of receptors and we're downloading an environmental signal that only we download. Nobody else is downloading your identity receptor signals. Okay. Well, wait a minute. What am I downloading? Well, an energy field. I go, yeah, that's quantum physics. I go, yeah, the protein responds to the energy field. I go, field? Definition? Invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. Spirit. Definition. Invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. This is why quantum physics is the only science that came first and said, spirit is a reality. And I saw it that time before it became a public thing. And I'm looking at it, oh my God, I'm downloading an environmental signal nobody else is. And it gives me my identity because it's called self-receptor, okay? And then the last piece said, wait a minute. That means my body is like a television set. And my broadcast I'm downloading is a program. I'm downloading the Bruce Show on this TV right now. And I then took that to the next step, which was, but wait a minute. If the TV breaks, we say the TV's dead. I go, absolutely. I said, did the broadcast die when the TV broke? I said, no, broadcast not even in. It's playing into it. The broadcast is not. It's up here. I said, that was it. Oh my God, I can't die. I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not in here. I am the broadcast that is playing through here. And if the TV breaks, the broadcast is still here. which then opens up, oh my God, what happens if an embryo in the future shows up with the same set of antennas? You're back.
You're
But
back.
now it's called reincarnation.
Wow,
And
fast.
this also brings up a principle that we must be learning right now, and that is this. Does it make a difference if the body is male or female? I say, no, that's not you. You are the broadcast. Well, does it make a difference if the body's white, brown, black, red, yellow? I go, no, that's not you. You are the broadcast.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I say, you know how much separation has happened here? As well as religion, separation. And I realized, oh my God, the whole thing is wrong. We're all unity. Why? We all came from the same field. The TV, that's programmable, that's got character, but that's not us. We are the broadcast. Immortality. And the moment that happened, I felt like I lost 10 pounds. Just went, and it turns out I know what it was. And it's this. Every organism, from bacteria to humans, has something called the biological imperative as an element of its life. I say, what the hell is that? It's also called the drive to survive.
Oof.
Okay?
Yeah.
You try and kill a bacterium, it's not going to go, oh, okay, kill me. Even a bacterium will do everything in its capability to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that imperative is in every organism all the way up. And you don't realize this as an individual. There's a part of the brain that has been programmed to have fear. Because fear didn't exist when the baby was born, but you were programmed to have fear. And therefore, there's a part of the brain, amygdala, which is the watchdog. For what? Do you have something to fear? Is it there?
Yeah.
24/7. The amygdala is scanning the environment to see where the threat is. It's looking for threat. Why? I need to save my life. I need to survive. If I see the threat, I can do something, okay? So 24/7. I mean, even at night, you're dead asleep and the noise happens in the room, you're right up again. Why? Amygdala says, something's happening. Boom, wake up. And that's the whole idea of it. So the fear is pushed us in a growth protection problem. Fear means wall myself off from the threat. Growth is open myself to assimilate what's out there. Can I be open and closed at the same time? Nope. If a stimulus is coming and it's a good stimulus, I move to a good stimulus. If it's a scary stimulus, I move away. So then I say, can you move forwards and backwards at the same time? Nope. And then it came, my God, you can only be in growth, or you can be in protection, but you can't be in both. And the more stress this world has, it is stress. 90% minimum of the health crisis, 90% is stress, which living in our world, watch the news.
Yeah.
You know, there's stress everywhere, you know, and so many aspects. Oh, wait, I want to back up. Can I back up? Here we are. I just discovered I'm immortal. I lose the fear of death. Why? I can't die. I'm the broadcast. That's not a body. That doesn't die. And I felt lighter. That's why my biological imperative said, don't work overtime anymore. Don't have to do this. 24/7 shutdown. The energy that you don't know that you expend every day looking for fear that you don't even know you're doing is quite a lot of energy. The lifting of the fear. All of a sudden, the amygdala's job went down to minimal work. Why? I'm not afraid.
Right.
I lost the fear of death.
Yeah.
My life is much more happy and joyous. Why? Because my mind, the subconscious, is not scanning and assessing my safety, and blah, 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 and,
Right.
and bringing fear to me, even if it's not real, if it looks like fear.
Mm-hmm.
And this runs all the time.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Sheesh.
Now, the weight disappeared. And I'm sitting there in this moment of, oh my God, I wasn't spiritual.
Hmm.
And at this moment, I went from no spiritual to fully spiritual.
Wow.
No learning curve.
You just
Not
popped right on
spiritual,
through to the other side.
spiritual. Boom.
Wow.
Okay. And then because I always, the whole thing you get to hear was to say this. My whole life, my life was based on my conscious mind, and studying and research and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But the moment this truth came into my life, I had the greatest ache in my heart that I could ever imagine. I had tears running down my face. This wasn't negative. This was uh, tears of joy, aching of, oh my God. Uh, I called it my heart orgasm. And the reason is I never even came from my heart, really, but that blew open the heart and changed everything from the way I look at the world. And the conclusion of this is now I say, oh my God, how to create the most wonderful life. And then I got excited because I wanted to tell everybody. So I gathered a bunch of students. I said, I got to tell you about this. If you understand what I'm talking about, you can create the most beautiful life. And I started to talk, but then they looked at me and go, you know, Lipton, for a guy who says you know this, your life doesn't look that good. And that was, boom, another one. I said, oh my God, I'm talking the talk. I'm not walking the talk. And the simple truth is this. Whatever valuable thing you have in your conscious mind that you don't bring into your programming mind is useless. You could be so smart. I could give you an exam, you get 100, and I say, yeah, but that information, has it affected your life? No, but I can get 100. I go, that's not the point. And the point, as you brought up in the beginning, I have a completely different life. I'm walking, and I hope people understand this, in heaven. I go, huh?
Hmm.
You've been programmed to have a good life and die, and then you go to heaven. I go, wait, you missed something here. I said, what? When you took that red pill and you fell in love, you turned this place into heaven. You created your wishes and your desires and you manifested them. And I go, so all of a sudden I say, but that's here all the time. And I go, yeah, but the world looks crazy. I go, that is the programming that we got downloaded with that took away our power.
Mm.
And the programming is the limitation of an individual's life. And I jumped out of that. Why? I knew about programming. I knew how to change programming, which requires a technique. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I learned the technique from a dear friend who has now passed, my friend Rob Williams, who taught a way of changing beliefs called Psych K.
Yeah.
And I changed my programs, the negative ones. And I ended up actually doing it with my partner, Margaret, who came on when I now knew, okay, I don't want to mess this relationship up. And she worked in the field of consciousness and workshops and all that. She knew all this about workshop. And I gave her the insight from the biology about the nature of the programming. And that if something comes up that is not me, that you know, a behavior, one of those behaviors that your partner looks at you and you've done something and your partner goes, who are you? Where did that come from?
Right.
And then I said, it came from the program that you didn't know you were playing.
Mm.
And it was invisible, so you didn't even hear what you said, but your partner responded to it. And I go, we both understood this. And
Wow.
we both understood how to change the programming. Consequence, the negative programming between us. If the moment they showed up, reprogram, eliminating all those disempowering, fear-based, aggravating
Mm.
programs of, and then guess what? I don't have those programs. I live, enjoy. Why? It's my choice. I'm the creator. I'm not buying your crap. If you're going to try and give me crap, forget about it. I have a choice. I don't need to listen to it. And all of a sudden, I'm living in the world, but not of the
Mm.
world, so to speak. I live in my own. And people have to understand the old hippie saying that I use a lot, try to say. And the hippie saying is this: before you go out and change the world, take care of your own backyard.
Oof.
And that was, I did it mentally and physically. I
Mm.
live in heaven. Why? That's a choice. All of us have that choice. I
Yeah.
just choose to use it without losing the power to negative programming. And 60, over 60% of the programs you were downloaded with are disempowering and self-sabotaging, as well as limiting your ability. And all of a sudden you have to realize the power of those programs and how it controls your life. And then, well, this is all new biologically. I also then recognize the Jesuits for 400 years knew this,
Wow.
and they told their people who didn't understand, they said, give me the boy until it is 7, and I will show you the man.
Mm.
They knew 7 years was programming. Give me the boy and I'll program him. They knew 95% of that person's life is the program.
Oh.
And they engaged a school, Catholic
Mm.
school. To what?
God.
Well, let me program you so I can control you the rest of your life. You sinner. You were born in sin.
Mm.
You were sinning and sinning. Oh, but we are the ones that can connect you with the
Yeah.
great God.
Yeah.
So how much money do you
Yeah.
have? First
Gotta
thing,
play that game well.
10%.
Yeah.
Give me 10% of your salary, and I'll clear you with a great
Mm.
creator. And I go, you sneaky.
Yeah. Well, you just even talking about this lands so much about folks hearing that what you were programmed in those first 7 years really does play out how your life, what your life experiences. And so what you're saying to us is that we have an opportunity to go back and basically rewrite our biography previous of those 7 years
It's not just an opportunity, it's really the
where
most
the magic happens.
important intention of your life.
Mm.
Let go of disempowerment. And the reason for disempowerment is very important. Each of us is a creator. Each of us has power, but it only expresses itself fully in community.
Yes.
If we all gather with the same wish, desire, then we have power to manifest it. If they separate us, then none of us has power. We have our own little power. I'm making my own little world right here,
Mhm.
okay? But I can't change the world. No, why? The only way I can do that is if I join with a large number of other people sharing the same wish or desire.
Yeah.
Because then each of us is broadcasting an energy from
Yeah.
our brain.
Yeah.
So each of us is like a battery, okay?
Mhm.
But the more of us that
Mhm.
share that field of information, the more power
Yeah.
we generate. And that's the power of community.
Well, and you say in your book that, I mean, you literally argue that the deepest intelligence in biology isn't the sharpest tooth, it's the cooperation and even bacteria networked to become us or become part of
Yeah.
us. So if cooperation is the actual engine of life and expression, then war metaphor isn't just,
No,
poetic.
not
It's
that war.
wrong.
That's an extreme version. The
Yeah.
average table version is competition.
Yes, that's exactly. So war might have one connotation, but you're true, but you're right. The competition piece, this other aspect is
Yeah.
very, very detrimental to our ability to reprogram ourselves
Well,
to
yeah,
really thrive.
and uh, it's a Darwinian theme. Okay,
Hmm.
survival of the fittest in the struggle for life. Well,
Hmm.
two entirely big falsehoods. Struggle. Who said there was a struggle? A guy in 1798 by the name of his name was Malthus,
Yeah.
and he philosophized that plants grow very slowly and animal populations keep doubling. I say, so what? He said, well, there's a point. There's too many animals and not enough food. And then he says, well, what's that going to do? Competition. Who's going to survive by who's going to get the food? And the ones that don't get it, they're the losers, okay? So that's competition, but that's survival of the fittest in the struggle for life. Well, get rid of struggle. That's a falsehood. Animals and plants come to an equilibrium. If there's
Wow.
not enough food, there are fewer animals. If there's enough food, there are more animals. So they always stay in balance, okay? No struggle, okay?
Mhm.
Competition. This is a major problem of our world at this moment. I go, what? What? Competition based on our consciousness of winner and loser
Right.
says, well, if I'm in competition, then I have to win, you have to lose. And competition, and it's interesting because when Darwin wrote it, he said, survival of the fittest. I go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The word fit, just by itself, fit, capable of surviving. Then I said, well, wait, take a gradient of fitness. At one end, these are just fit. They're fit, capable of surviving. But this group, they're more fit. They're fitter.
Yeah.
And then there's this top group.
Hmm.
There's the fittest. So Darwin's story, survival of the fittest. I go, what did he mean? He wrote it as this theory at the time of Victorian England. There was an upper class and a lower class.
Yeah.
The upper class, the fittest. The lower class, they were the feeder layer that supported the upper class. And they didn't want too many of them, so they didn't care how many of the feeder layer got lost because it wasn't relevant to evolution. It
Mm.
was only the relevant of the fittest upper class. Okay? Well, there's a problem. We've gone beyond that basic class thing. We're into another place. I say, what? Energy is life. That's a fact. Okay? Money is tangible energy.
Yep.
The more money you have, the more energy you have. The more energy you have, the more power of life you have. I say, so how's that working out? Well, in the Darwinian theme, survival of the fittest, we end up with 1% owning more wealth than the 99% collective, okay? And the competition gets severe. I go, why? Well, when 1%, imagine the resources of the planet as a pie,
Right.
and I say 1% is actually less than 1%, takes more than half of the resources out. What's left in that pie tray is a little piece of pie.
Yeah.
But I say, yeah, but 99% of the population is struggling to get a little piece of that pie.
Yeah.
That's the competition. And then I go, and here comes the problem with Darwinian theory, which acknowledges the competition. It has no morality on whatever you're doing to compete. If you kill somebody and you get more, hey, you're winning. Why? Survival of the fittest. The dead one? Loser. They don't get it. Big deal. Okay, we have 500,000 people starving in Africa and you're throwing away food off your plate.
Mm.
They're the losers. We're the winners.
Mm.
There's no humanity
No.
in the Darwinian quest for survival of the fittest. Any way you can win, you win at the expense of others.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is a self-destructive understanding of human civilization.
And frankly, a very similar understanding of the cancer process.
Yes, cancer, I love to say this because it shocks so many people. There's not one gene that causes cancer. Huh? We've been programmed that a gene can do this and I'm a victim. I go, no, there's no gene that does that. 90% or more of cancer is lifestyle. The cancer is a symptom, not the problem. The cancer is saying you're not living in harmony
Yes.
in your world.
Yes.
And the cancer is the wake
not
up.
Collaborative. Yeah.
Yeah, the cells in your body are now competing. Why?
Yes.
Well, there's less resources because those damn cancer cells are using most of it. And now you start physiologically falling apart from the cancer. And then I love it because the medicine says, yeah, but we can do chemotherapy and radiation, kill those cancer cells. I go, well, that can help me for a bit, but guess what? You never dealt with the cause of the cancer. You killed the cells that already have the cancer. So killing cancer cells in no way stops the formation of cancer.
Yay.
And yet, that's the resource.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm very sorry because having been a professor in medical school, I can tell you this from, not from an outside, from an inside. The curriculum in the medical school is controlled by the pharmaceutical company. Point. If there is a way to heal that does not use drugs, it's not being taught in the school. The school teaches you what drug for what function and what system. The school is a school for drug dealers. That's what they are. Okay, so they're not selling you cocaine, they're selling you statin. I go, statin is more deadly than the cocaine is. Statin doesn't work except for 3% of the people. 97% of people have no benefit from statin. And in fact, 25 approximate. 25% of statin takers have effects. They call them side effects. No, that makes you feel good. How about many people having direct effects that are making them sick? Over 25% of the people are having negative side effects that is impairing and bothering their lives. 3% being helped. The rest of the people, no effect at all. I go, that's the drug company selling you with a belief that is 100% false. And that if you're dealing with the blood pressure and all that kind of stuff, it's the stress.
Yeah.
And there's a better way to get rid of that.
And this part, there was a part in your chapter 11 of your new book, which was just, I'm still chewing on it like days, weeks later, which is your passage about the caterpillar. It really touched me deeply. And you go into this concept of the imaginal cells that show up and that the immune system starts to attack them or perceive them as a threat before they become the entire future of this organism. So it started me thinking about this cancer process. And then this old body then has the ability to dissolve into sort of a soup first. And you call our civilization's collapse, this chaos that we're in, you speak to this as where we are. I look
The
at this in the cancer.
the caterpillar
It's,
version of
yeah,
civilization.
yeah.
Caterpillars, as you mentioned, the most voracious of organisms. They
Hmm.
get onto a plant, they'll eat every
Decimate it.
leaf off of
Yep.
that plant.
Yep.
Okay? Well, human civilization in its caterpillar phase is destroying the web of life
Yes. Ooh,
just as much as a caterpillar.
yeah. Yeah.
And,
Mm.
and that caterpillar, and the part about it is when it ate all the leaves, there was no more. It got inside a cocoon.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what happened? I said, all the cells that had jobs, digestive
Mhm.
system, muscle system, all the jobs, the different jobs of a caterpillar were no longer available. All the cells were out of work, and the whole community dissolved.
Ooh.
And then the imaginal cells you brought up
Mm.
are the ones that have wisdom about a better way of living.
Mm.
And they are the ones that organize the soup of unemployed cells to reorganize into the expression of a butterfly with the lightest touch on the planet. And civilization is in the destructive mode of a caterpillar. And the jobs are being lost, and there'll be more lost. And then I said, well, when it falls apart, which it must, does that mean people die? I said, well, a lot of people die because of the stress. But the ending of a civilization doesn't kill all the people. They just move into another way of life. And that's what we're moving into, from competition into cooperation. We're making a garden that we destroyed. I say, important point about a garden is not a battleground. A garden is the height of cooperation, community. Every organism, be it an insect, an animal, or the plant, is living in harmony, and that's why a garden is beautiful. Okay? Well, we have been destroying the garden. We are the pest, and civilization is the cause. And nature is saying, if you don't change, it's over. And science has now even given a date. Within 10 to 20 years, there will be an irreversible collapse of civilization.
If we
Uh,
don't move into the
we
cooperative.
got to move into the cooperative stage.
Yeah.
And a little note to the younger people, because they're the ones that realize they're not even included in today's civilization. They can't even get a job,
Right.
okay? And they're feeling hopeless. Oh, I can't live. It's blah, blah, blah. I go, you're playing the most important role. I go, what? You're not part of the existing system. You are the seeds of the new system.
They are our imaginal cells.
And there's all new jobs, not the jobs that you've been struggling to get.
Mm.
All new jobs. What? Taking care of the environment, taking care of the people, learning to live in harmony. All these things are going to generate. So I just want the young people to know, yeah, it looks hopeless, but for you guys, you're going to be the real shaper, creator of a new civilization. Boy, that's a special job.
That's the most important job right now. And as someone who has been behind the scenes in imagining a new world and seeing things through a lens that no one saw, and that is finally, like, science is catching up, right? From what
Yes.
you've been showing all these years, what I was reading about that was my life draft all those years ago, like hearing you speak about your early work in the lab. I was also reading the work of Candace Pert. I was also
Yes.
reading the work of Mina Bissell. These, well, Candace is no longer with us, but Mina Bissell is, who was seeing the extracellular matrix petri dish thing as well. And her 45 years later, still everyone ignoring the data. It's just so incredible that there are separate pockets of people like you out there who are seeing it. But when you talk about this kind of caterpillar civilization we've come to here, I do love that you have this story of hope that is still being carried through in the midst of this. And as someone who's just come through and just only recently been public about your own journey with this, before we really jumped into the recording, you said, well, gosh, I better start practicing what I preach, and prove that this is something you can write a new program around in your own cancer journey.
Yes.
Can you walk us through, like, what has this diagnosis on the like, laying on the surface of the decades of work you've done and that you've learned, what has it asked of you to live it through your own flesh, to turn your consciousness, as you put it, away from the brain that loves the work and towards the body that's been carrying it? What is your terrain telling you that your intellect took over 50 years to hear?
Well, I saw civilization was in a very bad place. I saw it from a biological point of view. And it manifests through sociology, economics, all that other stuff, but everything is basic as a biology. And I saw this civilization is coming to a terrible crash. And as a biologist, I also saw the mechanism of a different way of evolution, based, as we've been talking about, not competition, but cooperation. And so I had the whole vision of, oh my God, how organisms evolve based on harmony, cooperation, working in community. And a new theory of evolution evolved from that new science of epigenetics and quantum physics. And I thought, oh my God, this is a whole new way of life. This is a new story of evolution, not Darwin, completely opposite of Darwin.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh my God. I have a theory of evolution. And then I said, yeah, but who are you? You're some guy. You're some guy. Charles Darwin, I asked somebody, but you're some guy. I didn't write the story out of, like, who am I? Who am I? And I was also concerned, as people would refer to me as crazy person. And for 20 years I've had this theory, but I just didn't want to bring it out because insecurity. And I kept lecturing more. What's that?
Programming.
Very much. Who am I? Who do you think you are? No, I'm nobody. Well, the idea about all this prevented me from writing a book and lecturing more. And then the cancer I got was, well, I didn't get lung cancer, kidney cancer, pancreatic cancer. I got tongue cancer.
How
And
poetic.
it cut off my tongue. I got paralyzed by the tumor, and I couldn't speak. And then it hit me. And it hit me and said, wait a minute. I haven't written this book. And the universe was just gently saying with cancer, shut up and write the book. And before I started writing, the scan revealed a malignant cancer. As the writing was in process, a subsequent scan said it is now a benign cancer. And upon completing the book, the last scan says no cancer. And for me, it was like, oh my God, biology of belief. So glad it happened. Why? Because if I couldn't do it, my career ended with a very shocking thing. Biology of belief didn't work for me. Ha! Well, I'm still here. My voice is going to get better because I'm wagging my tongue to exercise those muscles that were dormant for a long time.
Yeah.
But the idea is, I used to tell people who told me they healed themselves, they can become a teacher. Now that I personally have the experience, I will qualify myself as a teacher as well. Yes, we get cancer not because of genes. We get cancer because of lifestyle and consciousness and programming. The best example, if you, they followed the fate of infants adopted into families where there was cancer running in the family. And it turned out the adopted infant would end up with the same family cancer as the natural siblings, except the adopted child has totally different genetics. What was the point? The cancer didn't come from genes. It came from being programmed in the family where the programming was not functionally supportive and led the children to get what the parents had because they got their programming from their parents and passed down. Because we always used to think if something's running in a family, it must be genes passed from one to the next. Now we don't know. Programming is also passed from one to the next. 7 years of programming for every child based on parent who's already programmed by who? Their parent. And so in the lineage, the negative programming passes just like genes from one generation to the next.
Well, and that's where I'm hoping folks come back and read your book, Biology Belief, and later The Honeymoon Effect, and all spontaneous evolution, and into this Beyond Darwin book, because you give the whole, like, you show us your journey through learning this, and now this lived experience of, oh, I had a little bit of extra reprogramming to do. Folks listening to this, if they're starting to go, oh gosh, first 7 years of my life, the programs that are running me today, not the other way around, where can people start the reprogramming process? What are your favorite? I know you have some favorite tools. You mentioned the Psych K. Are there other tools or
There
other?
are three functional ways to change the program. How did you get the program in the first place? A state of theta, brain state, hypnosis. I go, you have to see a hypnotherapist. I say, no. I say, why? Because there are different vibrational frequencies. Hopefully most people are up at a higher one called beta, which is like schoolroom focused conscious, okay? But the next, a lower vibration than that is called alpha, which is calm conscious. And then the next lower vibration is called theta, okay? And then ultimately the next and bottom vibration, delta, is unconscious, sleep, out of here, gone, okay? So the point is this, every night when you go to bed, the moment you fall asleep, the brain is for a short period of time is in theta, which is what? Hypnosis. So I say, what? Put earbuds or earphones on, play a program you want to be true, self-help program, relationship, health, job. You play that as you're going to sleep. While you're conscious, you'll hear some of the program. But the moment you fall asleep, conscious disconnect. But theta is downloading the program. So you repeat this, and you have to repeat it a number of times because theta is not a very long process after you fall asleep. It goes relatively fast to the lower delta, okay? So self-hypnosis, that's number one. Number two, you got programs after you were 7 years old. You learn how to drive a car. You learn how to play a music instrument. You learn a job. I said, well, how did you get those habits? I said, repetition. Repeat something you want and keep repeating it and repeating it. And the subconscious picks up repetition and can turn it into a program. The humorous side one, which I always bring up, is fake it till you make it. What the hell is that? I say, you're not a happy person. I say, but you want to be a happy person? All day long to yourself. As many times as you can remember, you say to yourself, I am happy. I am happy. Irregardless of what's going on,
Right.
you just keep repeating, I am happy. I am happy. After a period of time, you'll wake up and the program will have been engaged. You'll wake up happy, okay? This is habituation. The more you practice something, the more you become whatever you're practicing.
Love it.
Okay? And then lastly, there's an old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Totally.
And the necessity is we have to change our behaviors very, very quickly because civilization is collapsing and we're destroying ourselves. So nature has come up with a new form of psychology called energy psychology. Uh, it's a version of psychology that engages something called super learning. I go, what's that? I go, a kid under 7 is a super learner. I go, why? They can have just one experience of something and it'll be in their mind for the rest of their lives. So if you can get back into that super learning state, you can download new behavior, and this is the exciting part. Within minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even some people 2 minutes, uh, you can rewrite a disempowering program and walk away with a completely different belief.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting because there are many modalities, okay? On my webpage, brucelipton.com, under resources, it's belief change programs, something like that. And I have over 25 different versions or modalities of energy psychology. I list them. I provide a descriptive paragraph for each one and a website to connect with that source.
Right.
So 3 ways: self-hypnosis, habituation, energy psychology. Those are the 3 effective ways to change the program. Other things, not very effective.
And I love, and at first, for working with so many clients over the years and even on my own, you're right. There's so many tools and so many things out there, but many of them don't land as you'd hope. And so I really appreciate you giving us some pointers as to where to start this process of our own reprogramming to move our collective consciousness and our cooperative survival mechanism forward.
Yes.
Bruce, you have this amazing book that is good. By the time we post this podcast, it will have just come out or just about to launch
Oh,
mid-August, August, I think 18th
18.
of 2026.
Yeah.
This is a run to book. It is so beautiful and so fascinating. Like you really help us understand where we've been and where we need to go. I'm so grateful for that. It's like a little roadmap, right, of where you're taking
I
us.
so appreciate your insight and what you experienced. I'm so happy because that was the intention. Make this a science book, but
Yeah.
readable for
Yeah.
non-scientists.
Yeah, you nailed it. You did it perfectly. I have one final question or thought for you that I'd love to ask everybody on my Tend the Terrain
Yeah.
podcast. No wonder we connect because you even dedicate your book to Mother Earth, to the garden,
Yeah.
and that's so resonant with the way I exist in the world. And that's probably thanks to you helping reprogram me all those years back. But what are you currently tending in your own life right now?
To wake up every day in love, every day to enjoy that I'm still here. I'm over 80, and I have seen many people younger than me go to the next level. I don't want to yet.
Not ready.
Why? It took me how many years to learn how to live heaven on earth, and I live it every day. I'm surrounded by love. I'm surrounded by the things I want in my life. I enjoy my life. So the whole idea is I wake up with the deepest appreciation of being alive on planet Earth.
Mm. And I can attest, you are like the red pill for so many of us. And your partner in crime, Margaret, is just a beautiful, no wonder. I mean, it's not difficult to be bathed in love with a partner like that. You two really reflect that off each other. Bruce, I am so, so grateful for your life's work, for your life, and for the lessons you are showering onto the rest of us. And may you continue to thrive.
Well, I want to thank you so very much because you are being an evolutionary leader yourself. Why? There's a public that listens to you.
Mm.
And you have an opportunity. What you are doing is providing them with information to have a better life. That's what we need, okay? So I want to thank you for your humanitarian efforts in that. And I really want to thank the audience because you are the participants of an evolution. It's not happening while you sit at home and wait. You have to go out and evolve. And so I'm so glad you're here, and hopefully some of the things that came up in the conversation will boost your enthusiasm to evolve.
Let it be.
Thank you.
Let it be, my friend. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to this audience. So thank you.
If you take one thing from this time with Dr. Bruce Lipton, let it be this. You are not the accident you were told you were. You did not come here to beat your own body into submission. Bruce has spent his whole life proving, cell by patient cell, that we were built by cooperation and made for belonging, and that the environment we give ourselves is the pen that writes what happens next. That is not soft science. It is the most rigorous kind of hope there is. And to sit with a man who is living every word of his own book and his own work in his own body right now is a gift I won't soon forget. Thank you, Bruce, for the language, for the grace, and for tending your terrain out loud so the rest of us can find the courage to tend ours. Thanks for tending the terrain with me today. Whatever stirred in you, don't rush past it. Let it compost, because when we tend the terrain, life knows what to do. See you in our next conversation.